night sweats.
It's the sleepless nights.
The mood swings.
The anxiety is way worse.
The hot flashes.
And it feels like it's just like a whirlwind that's just started to happen.
Not being in control of my emotions, and also just not feeling like you're not in control of your body.
This is actually normal, and it is a normal part of a female's journey.
Oh, yeah, toch.
It's very important to create a community of women that understand what's going on with their bodies.
With cancer in between, it just makes it so much difficult.
And I went into it blind.
So it's important that we open up and have these conversations and we just destigmatize menopause.
Remember, I promised you that amazing conversation with some of the most guys, listen. If perimenopause and menopause looks anything like this, then I'm definitely in good company. I've got some amazing, beautiful women. We're going to be going into conversation regarding menopause, perimenopause, their experiences, and I will leave the floor for them to introduce themselves. Let's start this side.
I'm Olwethu Zalishabane. I'm 35 years old, so I might not quite be there yet, but I know everything goes downhill from here, right? So,
Just so.
perimenopause probably loading in the next couple of years.
Even there.
It's there.
We're getting there. 35.
So stressful. It's so stressful.
It really isn't. I mean, it can be, but I think this is the good platform to have these conversations about. Let's hear.
Yes, I'm going to be learning today. So,
Diane Bennigan, 59, full menopause. Still feel fabulous.
Fabulous.
There is hope. I just embrace it. It is something every woman goes through. So it doesn't help fighting it. We just need to learn more, educate ourselves, and speak a little bit more about it. So everybody knows what to expect, how to deal with it. Because now it is. And it comes suddenly. The slush comes suddenly, unexpected. So there's no warning. But we live through it.
Hi, my name is Andisiwe Nhlapo, and I am a perimenopause advocate. I'm very perimenopausal. I've been going through it for the past couple of years. And I think on the positive side of menopause, because for you to go through anything, especially if you're living with it every single day, you have to own it and you have to be very positive about it. And perspective really means everything and gives you a different dimension to dealing with your issues once you own them. Own your monster.
That's so nice. You're a hot monster.
Can say that again. I'm Katleho. I'm 47 years old. I think I'm between peri or menal, natural wear. I haven't really gotten tested, but there's definitely signs. So we are very much deep within and just trying to figure out more about what this is, what this journey is, what to expect, how far does it go, and what it expects from me. Like, how do I get through it gracefully?
Oh, I like the gracefully.
Hi, I'm Angelique Garber. I am 42, and my story is a bit, two parts. My mother experienced horrible symptoms when she found out that she's going through menopause, and I'm very scared to enter that phase of my life because it was very difficult for her, and it is not a topic that women talk about a lot. I think a lot of women have shame around it, and I don't know, maybe feel unsexy or scared that their husbands or boyfriends will reject them once they know that they're going through it. I went for blood tests last year, and my doctor gave me a word that I heard for the first time in my life, perimenopause. I didn't even know that it existed, but I think that is the phase that I'm in right now. I do have a few symptoms, and I'm really looking forward to learning more on the topic and having an open, raw, real discussion about it.
Yeah.
Guys, I think one thing that I'm taking from everybody is that we are all somewhere in it or going through it. And I think the hardest thing for me as a woman, but also as a clinician, is seeing just how much information, accurate information, is out there, let alone the stigmatization about it. Do we even understand the difference between menopause and perimenopause? A lot of women are hearing the perimenopause for the very first time. And so it's kind of like, where am I in this whole equation? Do we know? Do we talk about it as women? Olu, you have a platform with a lot of women, conversation. Are we talking about this? And if so, is it accurate information that people are getting?
I don't think so. I mean, I think as a nation, we've just kind of destigmatized periods.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we just, especially because we're such a conservative nation, right? We've just started talking periods.
Sure.
And that's an inevitable. Every girl goes through that. And now we have to talk menopause. So it's almost like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, and it's these tough conversations that really need to be had, because at the end of the day, every single woman goes through their period and then they go through their menopause. So it is important to have those conversations. We're not having enough of those conversations. And also talking about it to prepare ahead, right? I think a lot of women just find themselves in it. You know, or just constantly hot and then cold, and then and then open up the door the next minute, and you never understood what was going on. But it's the conversations that we're not having, and also they don't know where to have them from. What point do you start?
Right.
Yeah, and sorry, 'cause when you're in menopause like I am, seasons doesn't, there is no the season. There's no winter, no summer. Every season is a summer for me, and a very hot one. And you just don't get relief. I mean, it doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter if the aircon's on. It's like the heater is inside, and suddenly it's like flaming.
That
And
doesn't sound fun.
you sweat and you're wet and you don't know where to go to. You can't run away from it. It's there, and you can wave as much as you like. You can drink water. It's there, and then it will subside again, and then you feel normal again. But it's weird. It's weird. The symptoms is really weird.
Just want to add to that. So that's the one thing that I think everybody out there knows, that, okay, you're going to get hot flushes. But doctor, I would love for you to talk more about, the psychological aspect and the emotional aspect, because I know my mom, she felt like she was losing her mind.
Yes.
And the brain fog for my mom was insane. Like, I really thought maybe there's something wrong with her brain. But it was just menopause.
It was, yeah.
So it's thanks, Angelique, for that question. It's really, for me, when we break it down to the basics, first and foremost, menopause is when a woman says, I've had 12 consecutive missed menstrual periods. Then we say you have menopause. Of course, the age plays a factor, because on average, we expect women to kind of experience this between 48 and 52 years of age, give or take on either side. There are certain conditions or certain instances where, for whatever reason, due to cancer reasons, treatments, we have removed the ovaries early. So we've rendered that woman menopausal at a much younger age. That's a completely different aspect, but they still experience the symptoms actually more harsher than the natural menopause. And then in terms of the perimenopause, is the one that's sort of like an iffy, in the sense that we always talk about our eggs. We get all our eggs in our reproductive system. We are born with them. We lose half of them literally by the time we start puberty. And then from puberty onwards, we are losing our eggs throughout our, in terms of our menstrual period. But what really drives that is the hormone, particularly the estrogen. Now, as we hit about 35 years of age, that whole surge that was going up, up, up in our teens and into our 20s suddenly starts to decline. It's not a sudden stop, it's finished, factory valley way.
Yeah.
No, it happens very gradually. And I think that's why sometimes a lot of us kind of find ourselves deep within, and you're like, no, man, I never used to be this person who was heating up the whole time. It's that frog, put it in a slow cooker, and you turn the heat up slowly. it's pretty much what happens to most of us. Now, the perimenopause can last anything between 4 to 8 years prior to you actually finally menopausing. So rightfully so, people who could be, I was in my 38s when I started feeling sort of like symptoms. I think there is another layer to it there's menopause, there's perimenopause, but there's also where we are in life and how have we learned to cope with stresses. I said earlier on, most of us are probably at peak, in terms of our careers. You've got a teenager running around the house as well. So it's like I'm supposed to have a grip on myself, and yet I feel like I am chasing myself and everybody thinks I'm crazy. Everybody around me thinks I'm crazy. My kids think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And I think it's demystifying that it is a natural transition. Sure, we have to learn a few tricks, get a few tools from the market in terms of how to manage. It doesn't have to be miserable, but this idea that something is wrong with me, in the bedroom, something is wrong with me, at the office, something is wrong with me. No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
Yeah. Doctor, with me, my experience was totally different. In my late 20s, I went through my hysterectomy, and then later on, I was diagnosed with cancer. For me, it feels like there was no options because everybody said, no, you can't take anything because of the hormonal, you don't want to jiggle something. So yeah, sorry, get a little bit emotional when I talk about it, but I heard there was something on the market that was now recently launched that is non-hormonal. It would be a relief if there's something that we can take that can actually just be safe and it can actually help us with all the symptoms.
No, absolutely. And I think you touch on something really important, Diane. 20 years, when you were 20,
Yeah,
and
on
I'm
my
29.
20s, yeah.
Back then, there was probably not even a single, let alone just people being concerned about the fact that if we're removing your uterus, which is the hysterectomy,
Yeah.
do you remember you had the ovaries removed?
The one ovary was removed,
Was-
the other one was kept.
Was kind of chaos, sure.
Yeah.
And then you then get diagnosed with, was it breast cancer?
breast cancer.
Breast cancer, which means also that we can't give you anything from contraception to hormone replacement therapy. Nothing. It is so good to be living in this time and age because now we do have non-hormonal treatments. Some of them are over the counter. They've got nothing in terms of stimulating the estrogen receptors, so they'll be okay even in somebody who has had breast cancer or has a risk factor
Yes.
of a primary relative that has had breast cancer. The other thing that it helps with a lot is over-the-counter prescription, for example. This idea that you need to go and see a doctor for everything.
Yeah.
It's important, yes, but some things are just like some women don't want anything hormonal in their bodies.
Yeah.
It is.
I'm
looking at Zandria.
I don't know. I'm not. Sorry. I know you are the expert.
She's the no hormones, no hormones, girl, no medication.
No, yeah. For me, I think Western medication I tend to shy away from because I believe very much in natural remedies. I mean, even with flu, I will make my own concoctions, at home. So I've been relying more on, and also I will research first to say, I will hear of something maybe on social media, then I'll go on research mode to see if fennel seeds really help, what do they help with, what in terms of symptoms, what do they which symptoms do they make better? And then I'll start applying those type of things, But now that there's non-hormonal options, it's a route that I want to take, that I want to explore. Because at the end of the day, there is so much more. Also, I think with the research that I've done, there's so much more that we still do not know.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, we're talking estrogen. When does one go check their estrogen levels? And what age do you do that? Because I found out that I was menopausal now, and it only clicks because my period starts being irregular.
Yeah.
That's when it says to me, oh, something's going on. But had it not been for that, Outside, it would have been, oh, I'm just feeling so hot. It's just, it's just hot all the time. Why am I the only one who's hot? But I didn't know that that was supposed to be linked to my estrogen levels. Now, I find out that there's testosterone also plays a part.
It does?
That's your mojo.
Please, like I explained to us how all of these.
Yeah, and I mean, earlier on you spoke about contraceptives.
Yeah.
Is that a way to manage the...
No, not even. So when I alluded to, for example, contraceptive, in the case of Diane, for example, if she needs either contraceptive for whatever reason, in her case, she would have removed her uterus, so doesn't need for pregnancy purposes. But anything hormonal, it could be even something like an endometriosis where we use some hormonal forms of, there is nothing she could have taken to alleviate those symptoms. Because when we remove the ovaries, basically we remove the chief agent that provides, yes, it's triggered in the brain, but it is triggered in the ovaries, all those what we call the 6 hormones. So estrogen, testosterone, as well as the progesterone.
Does the testosterone also go down?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, my poor husband. You see now what I'm struggling with.
So do we have to take any sort of test to check our estrogen levels? Is there a point at which a woman, this would be the advisory way, like let's say you hit 40 and it's like from now on, please, once a year, just check your hormone levels, make sure that you're on the right path, you've got the right levels going on. Or is it just something that is triggered by whatever symptoms come up and whatever's currently going on in your body?
Look, for the purpose of diagnosing menopause in itself, there is a test that we can do, what we call FSH. We check the level of it and if it is correlated with having missed the 12 periods. That's the easy part. Where it becomes very difficult for a lot of clinicians and clients, for that matter, is the fact that firstly, we all experience symptoms differently. You can easily get, if I can just refer to you, for example, you said you had your last born 3 years ago. That would have been about 43.
43.
43, right? Now, it could be signs of pregnancy and postpartum could easily feel like you're going through a menopause or a perimenopause. The irritability, the sleepless nights, the low libido, they could feel like it's a perimenopause, but actually not quite yet. The reason is because it's the same 6 hormones that are being affected. Let's track back one more time. We are naturally cyclical beings, as in even within our 20s, our 30s, peak fertility, peak hormones, even within our cycle, we are not the same every day of the month or of the cycle, which means we start off with our periods where generally all our hormones are down. And then as you get to about day 7 into day 15, they peak. That's when you want to be on top of him, on top of everything. You are the girl they like. You are the girl you think you are. And then premenstrual, we go through that slump again where we feel like we should be more reserved, more to ourselves. Things that felt nice last week don't feel so nice this week. Right. So think of your month-to-month cycle as a sort of like a mimic or as a prototype of your full phases of becoming a woman. So it's literally like you're going through that premenstrual phase, but for an elongated time, or postpartum for an elongated time. Again, like I said, it is the same hormones that are affected. The only difference with perimenopause into menopause is that they're not coming back. They are not coming back.
Well, this is
The factoring is not being renewed. And so that's why we cannot heal or completely obliterate menopause, but we can manage it. And what becomes beautiful today, which wasn't so much like Diane was talking about, is the variety of options. Not everybody needs hormonal therapy. And more women are coming, the Zandis of
Me too.
Totally non-hormonal. And it's a good thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially because, like I said, not everybody needs hormonal replacement therapy. And sometimes you might need it for a little bit, and then for the duration of the time, you are perfectly fine on non-hormonal treatments.
Do all you ladies go through the same symptoms?
No, I don't think so. I think that's what I wanted to ask, doctor. So for me as well, my anxiety is so high. My irritability is so high. And it was exactly the same with my mom. So I feel like I'm following into her footsteps. Will this medications, over-the-counter medication, actually help with those kinds of symptoms as well?
Absolutely. When you look at the holistic symptoms of menopause, it's not just the hot flashes, like you mentioned. It's the mood, it's the irritability. And some of these non-hormonal over-the-counter are very helpful, actually, as much as about 50 to 60% decrease in the irritability. But something that is always important just on that, people who already either had underlying or a predisposition to things like mood disorders, anxiety, depression,
Which I do have.
which you do have, you find that it's slightly more heightened. And I think that's where then the collaboration between, us and the psychiatrist to make sure that we're not treating you for the wrong thing, but we are actually attending to some of the hormonal changes that are happening. I know.
Doc, there's something. This waking up in the middle of the night. Can somebody help, please? Because, you wake up in the middle of the night, you don't know what to do with yourself. There's the night sweat that comes. Now you are wide awake.
Yeah.
And you sometimes just find yourself cleaning. It made a lot of sense of what my mom used to go through, honestly.
I was like, nesting, find her again. I found her awake in the middle of the night. I'd be like, Mom, what are you doing? And she's sewing out things and she's cleaning and she's changing things around. But it's that. Is that also now a part of it?
Oh yeah, it definitely is. Insomnia or the difficulty in sleeping, and it can be both. Either finding it difficult to fall asleep, or waking up in the middle of the night with absolutely like no sleep in you. So it's that kind of sleep disturbance, and it happens partly because of the hormonal changes, the core underlying factor. But also there's like this thermoregulation that gets disturbed. So your body naturally was regulating its own temperature at a particular level. Suddenly you get this up and down outside of that. That's why the hot flashes that happen literally uninvited, but also the waking up in the middle of the night, the irritability, the mood changes. I want to get to, Diane was talking about some dental symptoms, some mood changes. Can you change
I'm not irritable.
Right.
I think when I had my cycles way back, I was much more moodier.
Right.
With menopause, I don't have a lot of mood swings, but the hot flushes, the heat,
Yes.
it causes me to be sexy, but in a different way. I'll walk naked most of the time. Hubby likes that.
Yes.
And that's also where the irritation starts, is likes it, but in bed, it's another story. Then sexy go out of the way, out of the window.
I only hear the was that, as in,
Very dry. And
very dry.
it's weird because I don't know if it's the way we were brought up, but I'm not very open when it comes to sex talks.
Right.
Even with my husband, it's difficult to explain to him what I'm going through. It's dry, it's burning, it's knife. It feels like
Painful.
really that it is painful, but it's painful in a certain stage, and then you get your pleasure, but it's a struggle to get to your pleasure, and also. It is a struggle, and we need to maybe talk a little bit more about that, be a little bit more open about that, because it is your partner needs to know your struggles. Because it's fine to say, listen, I don't feel up to it, but it's fine to get into it, but you just think about it's going to be painful. And then the pleasure will start. It is. That is life. And I don't know if it's going to carry on like it. I don't know if lubricant really doesn't always work.
Yeah.
Really? It doesn't always work.
What, lubricant on its own?
Yeah, it doesn't really always work. Yeah. But it doesn't help with the painful stabbing feeling.
But where does that come from?
Knife cutting feeling. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain what
Where
it's
does
like.
that come from? I mean,
So the pain comes from, thank you so much, Diane.
Sorry, sorry, doctor. I thought it was the treatment, the cancer treatment, because that can also have an impact. But I think menopause also plays a part.
Yeah.
That's where I am, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Maybe in my 80s I will perform.
I'm worried. I'm really worried from a sexual perspective.
Right.
Like when I got into menopause, I lost interest.
Yeah.
Like literally out the window, to a point that I've desensitized the male gender so much. Like I'm like, how's that thing?
How does
Does
it
it work again? I'm at that point. So now I'm worried about shame. Maybe I meet some guy that I really, really like.
Yeah.
And then it has to go there. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Wait, I don't remember how to do this thing. Yeah, maybe like riding a bicycle.
Yeah, don't worry, that's bicycle.
My menopause. Where will it be sitting at that point in time? And do they have to explain the desire? Still. Yeah, must they what's going on?
Do I, like, how so I just remember, I mean, unless you're going for like a real world Ben 10, men as well are going through their own changes. And perhaps I love what you said about, you know, you feel a different kind of sexy, you are heat, but you don't actually want to give the heat. Right? And these are the candid conversations, I think, whether it's with our partners, if they are there, and for those who are still going to be incoming, as you are saying, there is nothing wrong with a type of reintroducing yourself. It's still a you, just with slightly different gadgets and different tools. The first thing I always say when it comes to intimacy is it's a spectrum and not one thing. So we don't always have to get things that are going inside other things, especially when it's painful. The reason why in perimenopause and menopause it becomes painful, it's a ripple effect. The first thing is that your testosterone is low and therefore your libido is going to feel like, so that desire of I want is already not on there.
So it's the testosterone that I've lost.
Pretty much. Well, all of them. They all, they're like the trio that like moves together. It's the trio.
So then it brings me to the question as to when you are testing, what are you testing for? Should you be testing for your estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone at the same time? And should they be correlative to one another? Should they speak to one another? What you should know and internalize. Because that obviously you're going to go for the test and they're going to give you the test.
Sure.
But for you to know and stay knowing where you should be.
Let's be fair, and I'm gonna come back to the testing part. I'm gonna finish off the sex part in the bedroom, and why you asked a very important why it hurts. A lot of women think that pain is normal during intimacy, and no, never. It should never be. The reason is again the lining becomes thinner. They say whatever is happening to your face is happening down there.
oh my God.
Right. So the collagen, the lining, the integrity of the lining, the sound, everything thins down.
She's sitting there like black check. Yeah, it doesn't. You ladies are amazing.
Right. So the pain happens as a result of you don't have the desire starting off with. Then by the time somebody's trying to do things on you, they might not even be stimulating. One of the biggest cause that women are not lubricating enough is actually because they're not being stimulated long enough. The foreplay, they're not getting enough of that. So layer that on top of that. And then, like I said, the integrity as a result of the low estrogen of the lining, you're more inflamed. That's why you are likely to get yeast infections, urinary tract infections more commonly in this stage as well.
Sure.
So with all that, guess what we do? Then we start avoiding because of the pain. We start not wanting to participate. And more so, you said something really that touched me, Diane, is that you also don't know how to articulate it to your partner. Remember, they live in a completely different body they just think you're being a monster.
Yeah,
You-
why not?
Why are you?
You're
why
never
not?
in the mood.
Or you're always a teaser. You walk around naked and
That's all.
and then what is used to it? You know, and I think it's in conversations like this where we kind of give each other also the language over and above the comfortability to say to the incoming person, Mamela, this is where we are. This is where we are. You're gonna have to go easy, you're gonna have to go slow. And you're right. It's a combination, it's a little bit of everything. It's the lube plus the non-hormonal stuff. If and when you do need anything extra than that, your doctor or your healthcare provider should be able to walk through that with you. Which then brings me to what you were asking, Zandi, about what should we be testing for? I think the first thing we should be testing for is find the right clinician, healthcare provider that kind of sees you, hears you, because a lot of the time somebody can do your test, but if they haven't done the test, though, they might come back and say, oh no, your estrogen and progesterone is looking fine for somebody who is in their perimenopause. You're still seeing 2-3 days of your period. All right. And then you're like, right, man, I'm forgetful. And they're like, dismissive, right? So it's also not I always say, you're not cheating on your gynae if you have more than 1 or 2 gynaes. In terms of the test, the only test really that tells us you have menopause or not is that FSH1. Before you actually menopause, yes, we do the progesterone, but it's at the doctor's discretion in terms of did they even hear what you were saying?
But can you ask for it?
You can. You absolutely can.
And from what age? Or is it symptom related?
In the perimenopause, I would say, and it takes me back to a question I answered earlier, which is, this is why it's so important to the Olwetus. Please get into that rhythm of understanding the rhythm of your own body, because what might start shifting for Katlego at 40 might start at 38 for me, might start at 45 for someone else. So it's understanding the changes and the rhythm of your own self and cycle. And you're like, ay, man, I never used to be like this. And I think that should be a good prompter. Having said that, we know that there's things like, again, pregnancy, breastfeeding, the postpartum phase that can affect your hormones. And so it's always good. The baseline for me is always check in with your gynae or your healthcare provider once a year, just once a year, so that you're sort of in the loop of what are the changes, what are the things that are still the same, what are the things you want improved on. So once a year, do your check-in. When you feel things have gone south or sideways, just prompt your doctor and be like, something is no longer okay in this particular department.
Sorry, now with the hormonal imbalance, right? With let's just say you don't know, and everything goes off kilter, and one of your symptoms is anxiety. How does that correlate to your mental health and emotional health as well? Because we never tap into emotional health when we look at ourselves in an overall perspective, holistically.
You know, I always thought there was something wrong with me. I was telling doctor that I literally almost called a shrink.
Yeah.
Because I thought there was literally something wrong with me. I'm like, I can't remember stuff. I can't operate at the same momentum I used to. Nothing is just coming together. Like, I go to sleep tired, I wake up tired. What is going on?
Frustrating.
I actually want us to go around, well, maybe excluding Oletu. But maybe go around, but maybe. Like, I literally want us, actually including you, because you spoke something about your mom earlier on. Either an experience, a psychological, mental related experience you had, or that you saw with your parents. I know Angelica spoke about your mom.
I mean, I don't think the symptoms were necessarily hectic with my mother. I didn't really observe many hectic symptoms with her and my grandmother. But again, it was the walking around in the cloth, you know?
Yeah.
I think we touched on it earlier on. Like walking around in a cloth, and I'm correlating that with, oh, maybe that was it. Grandmother also used to do the same thing. It was also just the random shouting.
That's me right now.
The random shout, like, "Ushatela ntoni?"
That's
Like,
right.
why are you making noise? Like, ma'am. What else can I think back to?
It's the irritability.
Like everything.
The moves that
The TV's volume would just be a little bit too loud. Like, Ninebs, can you please turn your volume? So yeah, it was those kinds of things. I just thought it was just being a parent. Yeah. They're just always annoyed at everything.
Angelique, you said something interesting. You said it actually made you scared of going into that, this perimenopause, menopausal period. A little bit more on that?
Yes, it really made me scared because it was almost like my mom underwent a personality change. She's back, by the way, with a bang. But yeah, she completely went through a change, almost like a personality change as well. And the extreme forgetfulness, because she runs a business, like she's a businesswoman of note. She's amazing. She's an incredible mom, incredible grandmother. But yeah, she was very forgetful that I really thought, doesn't she maybe have a brain tumor? And that's why her personality has changed. And, she always used to have the world's patience, and she was very irritable, very anxious. And as I mentioned, I actually do suffer from panic attack and anxiety disorder. So I also think that's why, but mine is also worse now, especially when there's alcohol involved or I don't sleep enough. And I just want to know why men don't go through this. It's like my last
Season 2.
That's it. We were always told that, women feel they're sexiest like as they turn 40. You get your zest for life. Life starts at 40.
It does.
And then menopause.
Yeah.
And then it's not connecting.
It's not connected.
It's because it doesn't sound fun. It's not super starting.
I get this question quite a lot, and I think it's and Angelique, you said it well. It's the biggest sex organ is actually your brain, first and foremost, before all your other gadgets that are working and happening. Having a positive attitude towards sexual pleasure and intimacy, and being open to the fact that, yeah, sure, like I said, you might not be doing the things you were doing in your 20s, but your sexual pleasure is always yours to explore, whatever that looks like. And so when we say life begins at 40 or the excitement begins at 40, it's because for the most part, and particularly for us women, that's when we are coming of age in terms of just being sure and being aware, self-awareness, being sure of the things we like, how we like it. And we are not too shy to say, I'm done faking orgasms now. I want the real thing. You're going to give it to me, right? Or But that doesn't change the fact that we are already on the decline in terms of our hormones. What also plays a big role, and I think you touched on it, Angelique, is lifestyle. So if you are treating your body right, you are eating well, you are exercising, doing strength training, you are feeling good about yourself, a touch of lubrication and maybe an over-the-counter non-hormonal might be all that you actually just need to get to the other side of what you want your pleasure to feel like. The flip side is true. A lot of the times you'd look at like 20, 30-year-olds who are suffering with diabetes and hypertension in their 30s because they haven't, sorry guys, been good custodians of their own bodies. And so it's a little bit of everything, but that's where that irony happens with, you're older and your hormones are going down, but actually you are more sure about what feels good to you and for you, and you're not shy to ask for it.
That's so true. And now come back to our eating habits.
Yes.
Does your whatever you take in, like sweets and whatever, does that play a role in your hormones? Or does it actually flame it up?
So sugar, anything sugar processed is likely to flame, to sort of inflame it. But also the other way around is also just as true, in the sense that already by the virtue of the declining hormones, you have a slower metabolic rate. You decrease on your muscle mass, which means you're not burning. If you're not exercising, you're not burning much at all. And therefore, that's why we start tubing. I want us to start with the food part first, then the tubing. Right. And then add things like, for example, alcohol, caffeine, you're not drinking enough water. All of those things will either have a negative or a positive. And so I always say to the younger ones, do to and for your body what it'll thank you for in your menopause and perimenopause stages.
That's great advice.
So, Doc, I'm just listening to all of the different symptoms that are coming up. And I'm just wondering if there's something on the market that's not necessarily hormonal.
Right. When it comes to the vasomotor symptoms in particular, thank God, there definitely is something on the market and it is non-hormonal. Again, some women may need hormonal, but for the vast majority of people, they want to start off with something that is non-hormonal that they can get over the counter. And particularly, there's a product on the market now, launched last year in November. And what is really beautiful about it is it addresses things like sleep disturbances, irritability, the mood symptoms that somebody would get, the hot flashes, which often interfere with somebody's quality of life. And that is brilliant because you get on with your life and you take the medication without having to worry about things happening in the middle of a meeting or a hot flush.
But I will then say cheers to a healthier us.
Indeed, a little bit more regulated.
Ladies, thank you so very much. You guys, I sit and talk to patients like besties every day, but this was special because I get to hear stories that, I never probably would have sat with you guys. Thank you so much for availing yourself. Thank you for having me. And please ask those questions and let us not stop having these conversations. It is mind-boggling how many women have no idea.
Yeah.
And so when I see gorgeous women like yourselves with platforms that are thriving and platforms particularly that address women and women-related issues, let's go talk menopause, perimenopause. You don't need to be scared. We got you.
Don't be scared.
We got you. We're in this together.
We'll hold your hand.
Hold my hand during the night sweats.
And continue the conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's a wrap from all of us.